Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha. I head up brand awareness at Reveal. On each episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live, I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest on this episode is a repeat guest. Kate was with us just a couple weeks ago. Kate is Chief Executive Officer of eDiscovery Collab. We are sitting side by side in Kate's offices in Brisbane, Australia for this episode today.
Thank you for coming to Brisbane, all the way to Brisbane for us, George.
Absolutely. That is why I am here.
Yes.
And happy to be here.
Great. It's really good to have you.
Great. I would like to pick up where we left off on the last episode. And today we're going to talk about all things tech. And I know
the fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And how you go about selecting a product. So let's start with this. I mean, in a given year, how many products do you think you're looking at?
Well, me personally, I try to find products that help me to do whatever I do. So it might not even be related to eDiscovery. It might be task management. It might be using AI in my calendar to schedule meetings. I reckon I look at least 2 or 3 products a week. Not a lot of them get through for me to get them to look at my team. So they've got to meet some basic requirements. So I love technology. So if I can find anything that will help me, like my phone is full of apps. Like I've got apps and things for everything. So I like it because it feeds my probably my OCD brain, where I can just say, right, what can this app do? What can this app do? And what does this technology do? So we review, but as a group, as an eDiscovery group, I reckon we'd probably look at probably 30 to 40 products a year.
And as part of that, you're looking at litigation software.
Absolutely. So we look at a lot of litigation software, but very few of them get through to our stack. And, we have some requirements that we require the products to be up to a certain standard before we even look at them. And that's a really easy way for us to cull products out. So certainly the first thing we look for is good basic eDiscovery skills. So if it doesn't have things in a logical place and everything that we expect to increase how the lawyers can work and increase the speed that they can work, that it doesn't get through. Security, I mean, obviously that's a given. It's got to have bank grade security, and you have to have your data hosted in Australia. So if you're looking at a product that is not available in Australia and doesn't have a data center in Australia, then my view would be don't go near it until they are prepared to bring that data center to Australia. One thing we are really passionate about is to make sure that the database is easy to administer in the background. So that what I mean by that is it easy to create fields? Is it easy to set up an AI model? Is it easy to set up a CAL process? And the reason why you need that is because if it is hard to administer in the background, it's going to cost more in consulting time. So for us, that's a way we can deliver to our clients value for money. If it's easy to administer, it doesn't take us long to do. Therefore, they don't get charged for it. So that's a really important aspect. Reveal we have found to be very easy to administer in the background, which is great. The next, I suppose, big thing for us is it's got to comply with the Australian court rules. So oftentimes the products we get are from America, and they do disclosure different to how we do it here in Australia, as you well know. So we've been working with Reveal for the last 10 months to get the Australian numbering format into Reveal so that it flows nicely for our clients. It doesn't cost our clients any more money to do it. If your product doesn't have that innate ability to produce unique doc IDs on each page stamped, then you have to get a third-party tool to bring in to do that, which is going to cost you more money. So if we had your product and we didn't do anything with the stamping, then we'd have to buy something else and we would pass that cost to our clients. So by getting you guys to innovate the structure of your database so that it enables us to do the stamping, we can reduce the cost for our clients. So that's very important to us. So if your product doesn't do that, then we probably don't really look at it as a starting point.
So that's a gateway issue for you.
That's a gateway issue because, otherwise it takes the guys, they have to pull it out, they have to stamp, they have to put it back in. Like it increases the amount of time that they have to consult dramatically. So we just don't look at it. The next thing we would be looking for, it must have some sort of technology assisted review or continuous active learning. And the reason why we want that is really primarily just to categorize documents with the most relevant documents first, so it speeds up the legal review process. So if the lawyers are reviewing chronologically, they will have lots of relevant, not relevant, relevant, not relevant. If you turn the continuous active learning on, it pushes all the relevant stuff to the top. So it just makes sense that the lawyers should review relevant documents first, and eventually they get to a point where there's nothing relevant and they can stop at that point and do some spot checks or work out what they've decided with the other side. So for us, it has to have that. If you're using a tool that doesn't have that, then I suggest you're using the wrong tool, to be honest. The next thing we like to have, and there's only a couple of products that we've looked at that has this, Reveal is one of them, is other AI technology inbuilt. So to give you an example, if you are looking to build a chronology, which is something we just did for a client only a couple of weeks ago, they were looking to build a case issue chronology, very distinct issue. They were preparing a brief for counsel. They wanted to include the chronology. We turned on the AI technology within Reveal and we said, if it relates to this issue, say it's relevant. If it doesn't, say it's not relevant. They were able to find the other documents for the chronology in a very short period of time. So issue-based chronology is a game changer in my view. If you can get that in your technology, go for it, because it just reduces the amount of time the lawyers need to take to look for those documents. Absolute game changer in my view. I suppose at a product level, what would we be if we engage with the product, we are looking for constant innovation of that product. So, with Reveal, we will constantly say to you, can we have this? Can we have this? Can we have this? And you know what it's like. You've probably got multiple clients who do this.
But we want to hear that.
Yeah, that's right. So we want constant innovation. And then we want you to tell us what's coming next. And that needs to be something we haven't thought of. And that's what you guys are doing at Reveal. So I think certainly there's a couple of products in the market where the company is really innovating and they go through those massive innovation cycles. And we love that because we love new tech. So for me, your product needs to be constantly developing. And then the biggest bugbear of my whole career is no user license fees. Can't stand it. So I won't engage with a product that has a litigation product that has user license fees, primarily because that reduces the amount of lawyers that can be put on a legal matter. So if you reduce the amount of lawyers that can be put on a legal matter, it's not as effective and it means they don't use it. So I want all lawyers to love litigation databases and enjoy working with them. No user license fees certainly helps me get there.
I mean, technology, of course, is important.
Yeah.
But how you use the technology matters as well.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that can cost the client money if they're not handled and managed well?
Yeah. So I suppose the first thing, if you go right back to when you identify your document sources and you collect them, I think if you're on a really big matter, you have to be really strategic about how you collect documents. So, but then again, there is also another strategy, which I'll talk through after this. So when we go out and we help our clients identify the document sources, and it's a really large matter that we're going to host data for a long period of time, we want to be selective about the folders that we select. We don't want to just collect everything, because then somebody needs to pay to have all those documents stored and somebody might review them. So it's an entire waste of money. So our purpose at eDiscovery Collab is to reduce the amount of time of legal review, because that's the largest cost of a litigation process by far. So just to give you an example, we had one large matter. It was a construction matter. We collected every document that they had because the issues were very broad, but they were able to identify just a couple of folders in their network that contained small amount of data. It was only 28 gigabyte we did not collect out of the 6 terabyte we got, but that 28 gigabyte had 230,000 emails, 30,000 emails in it. So if you can reduce, make sure your lawyers don't have to review 230,000 emails, that is a very good reduction in volume.
Yes.
So for me, be really selective when you collect your documents. If you don't need a folder, don't collect it. Then we have some other clients who just want to do a down and dirty, I need to find these particular documents quickly. So we simply collect everything and use the power of the database and the searching to find what they're looking for, and then we delete anything that's not relevant. So there is two strategies there, and I think you have to adjust your strategy as you go, but certainly collection of documents is an area where you can reduce the volume of documents if you need to. The second thing, which is a massive problem, is if your metadata is busted. So what I mean with that particular, I know everybody says metadata, it's not a good word for everyone. But what I mean is if you look on your Windows Explorer and you see the last modified date on a document, that is the date that you'll be searching across for your document date in the database. So if that date is busted, you can't sort chronologically, you can't exclude documents by date range, and it creates a whole stack of other problems.
Well, what do you mean by busted?
So if when you take your documents from one network place and you copy it to another, it changes the last modified date to the date you copied it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell this when you get documents, because all the documents have the same date, and it'll be a date close to where you are at that particular time in your date. So it's really easy to pick, and you want to identify it before you do anything with the documents, because once you bring them into the database, they'll have to be corrected, and that costs a lot of money. So you want to avoid having to objectively code document dates or any objective coding on any sense, because it's going to cost your client a lot of money. And if you can avoid it, then they don't have to spend it. So I think that's a really good thing to think about along the way. Another thing that we do after disclosure is complete is remove anything that is entirely irrelevant and their family items. So if you're reviewing 1 million documents and you disclose 200,000 of them and the rest are ginormously irrelevant to your project, then get them out of your database. There's no point paying for them. We always take a copy just in case something changes and they need to come back in, but remove them from your database so you don't have to pay the expense of hosting those for a long period of time. It's a really simple thing that can be done. If your provider's not doing that, push on them. Please push them to do it. The next thing would be, so in Australia, George, I don't know if you're uniquely aware of this, but we stamp each document, each page with a document ID, so that when you're referring to documents and witness statements, you can refer to the actual page.
It's a process unlike anybody else's anywhere else.
It's very thorough and very detailed, but it's something that the Australian courts require us to do in most protocols, so we have to comply with that. So what we do in order to reduce the cost of that is we get our lawyers to review documents in their native format, and then anything that they tag relevant, we produce in a PDF format stamped. And the reason why we do that is because if you just process everything in that format to start with, you're doubling your data size. So it's just another way that we can add value to our clients by making sure they don't overspend money where they don't need to. So I think that's really important to push your provider to do that. And then I suppose the other thing that often comes up for us is sometimes email archiving systems will actually change the content or the metadata of an email, which can render the deduplication process useless. So what that means in English is that you might have 5 versions of somebody's email, a to and from email in your database when you should only have 1. Mm-hmm. So if you identify that email archiving system is a problem at the collection stage, you can then work out a way to do deduplication just in a different way. So it's really important to identify if you've got any technology that is affecting emails or other documents that will take deduplication out of play. That's going to cost you a lot more money. So it's really important that you identify that early so you can fix it early.
So one of the themes in what you've been saying so far is cost.
Yeah, cost.
What are some of the ways that cost can be reduced? The cost of the database, the cost of the legal review?
Yeah, so look, there's a 1,000 ways, but
we might not have time for 1,000.
But certainly identifying any problems with your documents before you process them is one way that you can reduce the cost of the legal review process. Deduplication, if that process is not working for you, then your provider needs to come up with a different way to deduplicate documents. So, for instance, when you process documents through your system, it will generate what we call as an MD5 hash value, which is like the DNA of the document. So it's a string of numbers and letters sometimes that that deduplicates documents as they come in. So you're only looking at one version of everything. If that process doesn't work, you can still deduplicate the documents. You just have to know how to do it. So we have created our own hash value so that we can then deduplicate on content only. So it looks at just the content of an email. And if we say, well, that's 99.999% the same, we can assume that is a duplicate, and we can remove them from the database to reduce the legal review cost and reduce the cost of hosting them. Sometimes we will ask for an extra field in our protocol. So we will ask for the meta conversation index field, because that field carries a unique number to an email, which can be used for deduplication. So there is lots of ways to do it. You just need some smart people to sit down and work out how that's going to be done. And they all work for me. So that's good.
I got a chance to meet all of them.
You did. Morning. You met them all the Aussies from the down under. Yeah. So another way to get a really good reduction in volume is to do junk culling. So we probably spend the first couple of weeks whenever we get a matter just to remove all the junk out of it. So, all the Dan Murphy's emails, all the NRL teams, all the gridiron teams. So we get rid of all the stuff that is entirely irrelevant, classify it for the lawyers to look at. They look at it and we remove it from the database. Now, that mightn't reduce your volume dramatically in size, but the lawyers don't have to review it.
Right.
So that what we are trying to get there is, we get a bit of a bump down in size, but what we're really trying to do is remove them from the lawyer's review. And then the next step we would usually go to is remove anything that we can locate from a project that is not relevant to this particular project. So we go and find those documents and we get them out of the database. So that, depending on the volume of documents we've got, that can take it could take a couple of days, but if it's small, it is a matter of hours to get them out of the lawyer's review and out of the database, so you don't have to pay.
And those hours can lead to many-fold savings, right?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings in legal review time. Lawyers can review anywhere between 45 and 60 documents an hour. Doesn't take too many documents to crank up those hours. So we want to get them out of their view so they don't even have to look at them. Another way you can reduce the cost of legal review when your documents in the database is, and I know Reveal has this technology, as does some of the other litigation databases we use, is to tag duplicates. So if a lawyer says that document's relevant and there's 15 copies of that particular document in the database because they're attached to other emails, then you can also tag all of them relevant as well. So that can take out a lot of documents that are required to be reviewed. It's a really good and easy process to go through. If you're picking the right tool that's easy to administer, then that is a really easy thing to do that can completely get you down to a really low number very, very quickly.
And it would seem to me it also helps with the consistency of the results.
Yeah, that's right. And, if you don't employ that process, then when you look at documents, you'll see, hang on, how can that document be relevant and its exact duplicate over here be not relevant?
Right.
So you can pick up consistencies, which is useful, but we normally just go ahead and just quickly tag them so that we don't have that problem.
Yep.
I think your legal review strategy is critical to reducing the amount of time for legal review. Doing a chronological review, unless you've got a really small set of documents, for me is just not an effective way to get through the documents and reduce the cost these days. We turn on continuous active learning for every matter now. We use it to find relevant documents. We now use it to find documents relevant to case issues, legal case issues, which is amazing. We use it to find junk. We use it to find everything. So you don't have to decide that you're not going to review everything, but you want to review the most relevant documents first, because then you will know your story better than the other side and you'll be able to defend more aggressively.
And it's all about telling the story.
That's exactly right. You want to find the story of your case and you want to be able to defend really aggressively and quickly. So you might be able to, nip it in the bud quickly rather than have it continue on for many years. And I think continuous active learning and those types of technologies really help you do that. And then I suppose the other thing I would say is encourage people to negotiate their rates with their provider. So we have lots of different pricing models that we employ depending on who we are dealing with. If you've got a really large matter, then we will negotiate a corporate hosting model where you have to host for a minimum period of time and you pay less hosting fees for that. So I think you should push back on your provider to see if they can provide a better rate for you. You should do it with every matter, is my view.
And it sounds like it's not just a better rate, but it's a rate better suited to the specific needs of the moment.
That's exactly right. So I just think people sometimes get nervous about asking for a reduction. I'm a massive fan of asking for a reduction, as the Reveal people would know. So I would encourage everybody to do that. You might get a no, but at least you've asked the question.
Along the way, you've seen a few mistakes. What are some of the common mistakes that can increase the cost of document management and litigation?
Yeah, I think we see lots of mistakes along the way. For me, the biggest mistake is just not getting your eDiscovery provider involved early enough.
Now, what are the implications then of that?
Yeah, so usually for us, if most of our clients get us involved very early now, but usually what that means for us is we have to go back and recollect documents because they haven't found all of the different document sources. We don't get the ability to identify if there's any document issues, so we don't get to know if the documents are the busted dates or any of that stuff. We don't get to identify that early, so we can't correct it. So then we've got to objectively code documents in the database. You've under-collected or over-collected, always a massive problem that's going to cost you lots of money. And you should be treating your eDiscovery provider like they're part of your team, because they can find stuff right at the start that you don't even know is there. They will know when they're talking to the IT team that, where are these data, and have you got this, and have you got this, and the IT will go, oh yeah, we use that as well, and we use that as well, and we use it. So you're going to find more documents if you engage with your provider. One thing we do often find is lawyers can't talk tech, and tech people can't talk lawyers.
Right.
Your eDiscovery provider is usually the person who sits in the middle and can translate both of those languages. Your tech guys at your corporate office are always nervous because they're going to be called into court. So, you want to say to them, no, it's okay. We just need to find everything that is related or potentially could be relevant to this case. You got to put the right people in the right job. So there's not a lot of point a lawyer going and doing that job because they simply don't have the technical skills to be able to do that. So that's why you need to engage early with your eDiscovery provider.
So engage early rather than late. What other mistakes and ways of addressing mistakes are there?
Yeah, so I think another common mistake is lawyers not using the full functionality of the litigation database. So I would encourage all lawyers, if you are doing a repetitive task over and over again, if you talk to your eDiscovery provider, you won't have to do that task anymore. They will show you a better way to do it. That will increase what you're going to get anyway. They'll add more value to your process and speed up your time to do it. So for instance, a lot of lawyers still type out their list of documents when they're on disclosure. A database can do that for you in about 2.5 seconds. So, it's very easy to produce a list of documents. You shouldn't be typing that anymore. So even if you're not going to ongoingly use litigation database, you can simply process your documents through the database and produce a list of documents. It is a very efficient and time-saving way to do that task. So I would encourage your lawyers to certainly use all of that functionality. Even if you've got a small matter and you turn on continuous active learning, you're going to be looking at the most relevant documents first. So for me, turn it on, use it on every matter. It will help you understand your story faster.
Is there a matter too small for it?
We usually recommend anything under 1,500 documents. Doesn't need to go into a litigation database. There's not a lot of those anymore in my view.
Yeah.
But even if you've got under 1,500 documents, give it to us. Let us produce a list of documents and deduplicate that set for you, because we're going to save you some time and cost there. So if your client's given you their inbox, there's going to be duplicate emails in there. There's going to be junk in there. So you don't want to look at that. So give it to us. We will chuck it into the processing system, deduplicate it, get it ready for you to look at. You will review very, very speedily if you are using a litigation database. So it's just going to save you time and eventually your client money.
And to your point, how many inboxes these days only have 1,500 messages?
None. And even if you've got 1,500 emails, if they've got attachments, you could have 3,000 documents like that. So I just don't think there's any. I mean, we've got a matter at the moment that's got 392 documents in it. Now, when they gave it to us, we said, oh, hang on, you might be a bit early. And they said, oh, no, the other side's going to disclose heaps of documents. So they were already across it. But it just, yes, there is a cost to it. Yes, that cost is right up the front.
Right.
But it's going to save you and your client down the other end. And it's going to make you work smarter and faster.
Because that cost is up front, do you find that there is resistance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is complete resistance.
What discussion then do you have with folks about
Look,
that?
that's really hard because sometimes if a lawyer hasn't used it before, they don't know what the benefits of it are.
Right.
We find with our clients, once they've used it, they never go back. Like I had a lawyer in Perth the other day I was talking to, and he said, it's only small, but you will produce these documents quickly for me, and your hourly rate compared to mine is minimal. So he's actually using us as a cost-saving measure to show his client that he's cared about their costs. So, which is really nice. He said, I gave him a quote. I think the quote was $1,500, which was nothing. He said, oh, that's just 2 hours work for me. But for him to do that task would be 10 hours.
Yeah.
So, the cost savings are there. You just have to understand how the model works behind it.
Any other mistakes you see people make?
I think probably another mistake is the legal review strategy. So you need to really sit down and think about how you're going to review documents. Legal review, the cost of legal review is absolutely mind-blowing. But obviously it's an essential task, so you have to do it. If there is any way to reduce that cost, so make sure your deduplication's been done accurately. Make sure you're reviewing documents that are in the date range of your pleading. That is a common mistake we see, that they just start reviewing and we go, hang on, this is not even in the date range. Make sure that you have collected the right custodian so that you can review documents effectively. If you've got a really big case, then you might, and there's lots of legal issues, and it's hard for reviewers to get across lots of legal issues at once. Turn on that issue-based CAL model so that they can just review documents that related to that issue that they're a specialist in.
Yep.
There's not a lot of point having paralegals review documents where there's 17 issues in play and they've got to understand all of those issues and tag to them. Sometimes we take databases over from other providers and there'll be a list of 60 case issues. There is no way
It's not possible.
a lawyer can understand what all those case issues are and get that right.
Right.
So your case issue list should be small. Now you can, once you've coded to that one case issue, you can then split into sub-issues, but get that case issue, the top level case issue, sorted up front. If you're asking paralegals to review and there's heaps and heaps of case issues, it's just not going to be effective. It's simply not going to work for you.
Right.
And certainly in Victoria, we do a lot of disclosure by category. Really important then to define your categories really succinctly so that when your reviewers are reviewing, they know exactly what they're looking for. And I think that's why I love case issue coding so much, because in Reveal specifically, you can very much find everything that just relates to that issue and then have your subject matter expert in that issue review those documents. It makes logical sense to me.
It seems so much more efficient.
Yeah. And, lawyers don't really like reviewing documents, so if you can make it easy and streamlined for them and they know what their process is, then I think that's really good. One last thing I would say to reduce costs, and this is something we often do for our clients, is your eDiscovery provider should be constantly looking at the coding, and they should be able to identify from that coding if somebody is not understanding a particular issue or understanding relevance or understanding privilege. If you turn on your continuous active learning, it puts a number beside each document, and that number is ranked highly relevant to lowly relevant. So what we see is we get your senior lawyers to go in and they do a bit of coding, and then the numbers start to appear and they're accurate. Then you bring your paralegal team in and you see, oh, hang on, that number is scoring very highly relevant, but the paralegal said it's not relevant. And as your review goes along, you can pick up, okay, that paralegal doesn't understand case issue B. This paralegal's just gone a bit rogue. It's Friday afternoon.
These things happen.
It's Friday afternoon and they want to get out, so they're trying to go too quickly. There's lots of indicators to your eDiscovery provider where people are going off track, and the technology really helps us to identify that, as well as the speed of their review. To give you an example, we had earlier in the year, we had this one paralegal who was coding like thousands and thousands and thousands of documents a day, which is
Sounds like a lot.
Sorry, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 lawyers in my life that have been very speedy at reviewing documents, but this was unusual. They were a new paralegal.
Yep.
And anyway, we got to the end of the process. The whole time we were saying to the legal team, this person's going too quick. The decisions don't look consistent. Anyway, the lawyers were busy, so they just moved past it. We got to disclosure, gave the senior lawyer the list. That's not relevant. That's not relevant. Oh, my gosh. They had to re-review 60,000 documents. So the signs were there to tell us, to tell them that there was something going wrong, but they were too busy to look at it.
Right.
So I think engage with your provider. If they're telling you that something's going wrong in the background, then there's something going wrong. So engage with your provider early. Bring them in as part of your team so that they can really help you add value to the process. They're experts in eDiscovery for a reason. So I just think you should use their brain at any stage to make sure your review for your client is the best it can be and the most valuable cost-wise it can be.
Well, that sounds like a great place
great
for
outcome.
us to stop. And a great place for us to stop. Okay, thank you very much. Kate Clark is the CEO of eDiscovery Collab. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Kate, thank you so very much.
Thanks, George. It's been fun.
It has been.